Welcome to Healthy Trust with holistic nutritionist and emotional eating coach Lily Aronin. This class on trust in God follows the classic workgate of trust. Walk with us as we enter, as King David in Psalms called it, the tower of divine protection, and pull up a seat.
Just to remind everybody, we were on page 119, and we're moving on to page 120. And we're going to start discussing reluctance to put ourselves in dangerous situations and where that is appropriate and smart and where we're supposed to be taking more risks, etc. Okay. I'll tell you guys something crazy happened to me this week. I was walking my dog on our beautiful nature paths here on the Yishuv, a dog that's been with us for 13 years. And once in a while, like you hear wild dogs barking. I told you last November I saw those dogs and I didn't do it. And, we see deer sometimes, but it's very safe. Like people walk their dogs there all the time. And I was walking my dog at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the evening, and she got attacked by somebody's actual dog that they had not on a leash, and she attacked her and killed my dog. That was
no.
Yeah.
No.
It was
Wait, did you say killed? No.
Really terrible. And like in front of me. So that we rushed the dog to the emergency room, and it was 24 hours, and then they had to put the dog down the next day. And at the same time, my son is getting his Hitsteinut Award of Excellence from the Army. So in between, and I have to break it to him that like his, the dog is passed, and my father-in-law is visiting from the States, like is literally coming from the airport as this is it was such a cluster of this topic, putting this feeling right of like, did I put myself in danger? Did I endanger my dog? No. Should I have tried to rescue the dog from the other? Like, no, right? No, I should it happened in less than a minute, but like all these thoughts go through your head, exactly what we're talking about now. But we can all relate to having been in a car accident, and these questions go by. Did I do something that put me at risk? Did I put someone else at risk? How many times have we touched our phone and we're not supposed to in the car, right? And I was saying to my daughter about this, like, look, they did something wrong. Their dog's not allowed to be off the leash there. It doesn't matter that it's like a nature area. Like your dog has to be on the leash. And she looks at me and she's like, once I saw everyone had their dogs off the leash. And so once when I was walking her, I also took her off the leash just to see like how nice it would be if she would. And again, because we had this conversation of what's normal, right? If I'm doing something everyone else is doing, am I creating risk? If everybody texts one drive, am I creating risk? If everybody has one drink and drives, but not 3, am I creating risk? Am I putting myself and others in danger or not? And these are really practical things. They're not just things of, should I get on this airplane, that's brand new, or should I get in this self-driving car? It's really things that we don't want to always think about in our everyday life. We don't want to always think about what responsibility am I taking when I'm rushing? What responsibility am I taking when I'm not thinking things through? And responsibility to ourselves, responsibility to God, responsibility to other people around me. And we know this is true in the big things, like what happened to my dog. It's true in what happens in our cars every single day. It's true in what happens in conversations with other people, where one person takes something and really feels uncomfortable because of something that happened, and to someone else, like it was just a comment. It was just something they felt needed to be said, or this or that. We're all smacking into each other in a million ways on any given day. And in the end, we don't have control over always the outcomes of these interactions. I'm sure 9 times out of 10, nothing happened when the people walked with their dog without the dog being on a leash. 9 times out of 10, I'm sure. Or 8 times out of 10, because dog bit some other dog one other time. And in the end, you have this huge tragedy that was a tragedy for that family, a tragedy for my family, traumatic for me, costly for them, emotionally costly for everybody, a whole balagan, a whole mess. So I wanted to put that out there, first of all, because my brain's still a little bit processing, 100%, but it's super relevant. And I want to make sure that when we're learning this, we're constantly remembering how relevant this is. And the Yetzer Hara, the inclination, is saying, I don't put myself in danger on a regular basis. Like, this doesn't apply to me. This applies only in really like crazy situations. It doesn't apply to me. I'm not endangering myself. I'm not endangering others. I'm just trying to be a good human getting through the world. And what we learned in Miss Yossi Sharm, and what we're learning here is, we have to be self-aware like all the time. And it's a lot. It's a lot. And so we have to go ahead, please.
Lily, I remember a few weeks ago, you you had even took a picture of it or a little video,
Yeah.
and you were with your dog and you saw some wild dogs
Yes, I said it, yeah.
and you said, I'm not going to go there I'm not going to put myself in danger. And you
Right.
avoided it. So here was a situation that, you didn't see wild dogs. It was a domestic dog.
Yeah.
Oh God. And so you couldn't have controlled that. You couldn't,
Right.
like you just said, you can't control the outcome of how somebody is going to respond and how a dog is going to respond. We are, after all, we have animalistic instincts, all of us,
Right.
um, I'm just so sorry. I'm so
Thank you.
sorry.
It was really terrible, but at the same time, like, so here they had this horrible thing. It's on them in terms of responsibility. They showed up. They stayed there. This poor 14-year-old boy is with his dog, stayed there while I was weeping over my dog. Okay, paid the bill at the vet. They paid for the burial. Like, they were good people, good neighbors, even in a situation where in a moment you're not a good neighbor. But you don't know I'm sure in the moment they didn't think they were doing anything wrong, right? I'm just answering a text message. The dog just needed a little, whatever story we're telling ourselves all the time. It's right. Like, I just felt like it needed to be said. How many times have we said that? No, right? It couldn't wait. And it brought me, I had a lot of really interesting journaling this week about this topic of what's in my control, what's not in my control. What's the correct compassion? What's not the correct compassion? Now I have to file a report. I have to report the dog. But they did everything else right afterwards. But this didn't do right, and the dog is in danger. So now I have to still do that, even though it doesn't feel very good. And I want to avoid the discomfort of filling it, right? But then I'd be doing this. I'd be putting other people in danger. And we're in such a generation of feelings, right? I want to have good feelings. I want to have good feelings that we forget that behavior is Jews. I was listening to Deepak Chopra and I love him. But today he had one and I was listening to it. I'm like, I don't agree with this. I don't agree with this. It's not Jewish. And he was saying how we have to judge everybody favorably, right? Check. We agree with. And, even somebody who's doing evil in the world, we have to like find the place of love. Yes, but as Jews, we believe that we have to separate behavior from who a person is as a soul. Someone who's doing evil behavior has to be held accountable for evil behavior. Somebody who makes a mistake, like your loving child who makes a mistake, you have to hold them accountable for their mistake, even while you believe they're good and you want what's best for them and you want to help them. The criticism is constructive. The consequence is constructive. And in life, it's hard to hold that balance because right? And this is what we're also doing at this time of year with the Sfirot of these different Kabbalistic energies, right? Compassion, strength, boundaries, generosity. They have to be interconnected. So I'm going to read here and then I'd like to hear everybody's thoughts. We're on page 120. It's not considered a lack of trust in God for Shmuel to say to God, hey, you're sending me to go crown a new king and there's already a king present. That's going to put my life in danger. How do you want me to go about this? Like, I don't understand the thing you're asking me to do here. And God's response to him implies that his caution was praiseworthy. A calf of cattle shall you take in your hands, and you shall say, I have come to, and he gives him a whole backstory to cover what he's going to do. Were that Shmuel's reluctance to place his life in danger was a lack of trust in God, then God would not have given him these instructions. He would have said, like he said to Moshe Rabbeinu when Moshe didn't want to go serve the Jewish people, get up and go do what I told you. Everything's in my hands.
Mama, can I watch?
Hold on, I'm sorry, I'm on a Zoom right
I want to.
That's between you and Daddy. God did not respond to Shmuel's concern by saying that it was baseless. I'm literally teaching on a Zoom. Go talk to Daddy.
No.
Go.
I do
Okay.
that. I
Despite his complete righteousness, we're on page 121, Shmuel did not act lightly and place his life in danger. He would have been doing so even at the instruction of Hashem. All the more so are we morally responsible to protect ourselves. Now, there's two reasons why Shmuel's case is different, and you could make the suggestion he should have put his life in danger. We're on page 122. I'm sorry. Hold on one second. Okay, and we're back. I lost my place. But we were talking about Shmuel versus Moshe. Okay. So Shmuel, who was a prophet, which means he's having direct conversation with God, felt that he was perfectly, and God agreed that it was perfectly legitimate to say, hey, this sounds really dangerous, the thing you're asking me. How do you want me to go about it? And I think that's a really intelligent question, isn't it? He didn't say, no, I can't, which is what Moshe said, right? I can't go serve the Jewish people. I have the speech impediment. He said, this seems really dangerous. Do you have a plan? Right? Like, how do you want me to go about this? And I think this is a nice lesson for us to take, is when Hashem's asking us for something that seems really difficult or beyond our means, or, well, this seems dangerous. Maybe to say, not like you can't do it, but how do you expect me to go about this? Right? What's the plan here? Can you read me in? Like, is there any more specific instructions that you want me to take while I'm going through this situation? That would be helpful. And I think that's a nice rebrand to this conversation, right? Because I know how many times I've been in a situation where I'm like, are you sure this is what you want from me? And instead of saying, no, this can't be what you want from me, perhaps like more gently being curious, like Shmuel being like, this seems dangerous. Please give me more details, give me more guidance. And so it continues here that if we don't engage in this conversation with God, either two things will happen. Either we'll be saved or we won't be saved. We'll go do the thing, right? It's kind of, it strikes me as almost passive aggressive. Fine, this is what you want me to do. I'll go do it, right? But we didn't ask any clarifying questions. We didn't ask for guidance. We just went. Okay, so either we're going to be saved or we're not going to be saved. And if we have to be saved miraculously through some like great, crazy thing that wasn't reasonable, then either it's going to take away from merits, as it says here on page 122, or we're going to be held accountable for putting ourselves in unreasonable danger because we didn't ask clarifying questions. And this keeps leading into this. The word in Hebrew is metach, this kind of contraction between hishtadlut, doing things, and having faith in God. Like, okay, I have to do this thing and have faith in God. So how do I go about doing it again? I have to go by doing it according to God's will, which means putting myself in the least amount of danger or risk possible, but still doing the thing. And if I can't figure that out, ask better questions. That's my summary kind of this section. Thoughts, things that are resonating with you, or an insight you have that's different than mine, or something that came up for you when I mentioned this. I'm interested.
I'll say I always think it's timing is always so divine.
Yeah.
Each week. I am doing this book read with a whole bunch of people called, it's very diaspora focused, called Fighting the Hate by Melanie Phillips, I think.
Okay.
And it's really interesting because the section that I like, I had to read over a couple times, and it's a teeny little book, really kind of like more of a handbook for what's happening right now. And there's a whole section on like when to speak and when to hide. And she doesn't literally mean like hiding from it, but how you approach when you're talking to somebody, that, you, each time you have, some, a type of confrontation, let's say, for better or worse, you have to evaluate on what level you're going to be having this confrontation, because you have to take in these other factors. And she goes back to talk about, how obviously your safety is the most important thing, but then you have to, like, there's so many different things to weigh that, and she points out different things and different ways to weigh it and different options and all of that. And when I was first reading it, I was like, okay, yeah, now I got to know this point. I got to know this point. But then she talks about the option of hiding and why that's so important sometimes, which is, not to, go right in, but to take it slowly and slowly let yourself and let it unfold. And how you might change the reaction down the line by not kind of jumping in, but the way that we're reading this today, I'm like, that even gives me so much more perspective on holding these two things at the same time, because you're always having to make these decisions,
Right.
And I think it's that whole, kindness without boundaries, which, of course we all want to be kind. We all want to we all want to take care of, but if we have no boundaries, I have this with a friend right now trying to say to her, you can't do that for the other person. Like you are stopping them from growing. It's horrible to see them in pain. It's horrible to see all that, but kindness without boundaries is damaging, I mean, and I think like all these situations, it's so hard to see both that our
Yes.
brains are constantly, I mean, we're wired for survival. So of course, but then you're a mother and a woman and an owner of a dog, you're wired for keeping that dog's, survival,
Right.
and so it's so hard, but I just never thought of the option of, and I don't necessarily like the word hide, but
Right.
that's hard. That's a harder thing for me to do than to come out and like
Right.
your natural instinct is protect the dog, but you would have been probably attacked in the situation and all
Right.
of those things. So there's so much, and it probably happens in the blink of an eye, this
Right.
situation on a regular basis, like when you're driving the car and you choose to gun in front of somebody or not. But
Right.
but it happens so fast in our brain that we sometimes miss it, that we do this all day long. I mean,
Exactly. And like you said, and like my daughter brought up, how much we're influenced by the choices other people make instead of our own internal compass of our relationship with Hashem and Hashem's will. How many times when I first made Aliyah, I would never cut in front of somebody, and you're here for long enough and you become more Israeli and you're driving, like you feel like you're just dumb for sitting in the line for 8, like every car is going around, how much we are influenced by what everyone else is doing around us, to good and to bad, which is why one of the central ideas of chesed and boundaries is the concept in Rashi, in the Torah, of good neighbors, good behavior, bad neighbors, bad behavior. And it's not just that I'm going to become a bad person because I have bad neighbors. But if I have neighbors who normalize this behavior, I am intrinsically going to normalize that behavior. And if I have neighbors that normalize this kind of behavior, then I'm going to normalize this kind of behavior. And this is true in your small neighborhood, in your next door neighbors, but it's also true at your shul, and it's true in your friend group, and it's true globally. When we globally make it okay to hate other people just because of who they are, or to be hated just because of who we are, we have an entire narrative story spun around that neighbor, around that reality, right? And it comes down to these kind of situations of bitachon, of shoot, there's this like a place where I'm currently allowing the world to dictate my behavior, and my behavior might be putting myself or others at risk, versus what does Hashem want from me here? And it's just a constant redirection, because part of survival, especially for women, is being part of the herd. And there's definitely a challenge of doing something different. And I feel this definitely as somebody who's moved to a new country, of assessing, but this feels right to me. But does this only feel right to me because I have American values? Is this a subjective right, or is this a God right? And it's very hard, because like you would say, politeness, cleanliness, these are objective rights. But then you see somebody who grew up with totally different culture, and you're like, wait, is this subjective or objective? I don't know.
yeah, I'm watching Murray like he transform. And even when I was there the last time, he was like, you just call and tell somebody you're coming for Shabbat. You don't wait for someone to like, he's like, everyone's expecting extra people always. Like, he's like, you just, mom, just call and say, I'm coming for Shabbat. And I'm like, I couldn't do that. I couldn't do that. He was like, oh God, fine. I'll just like call them and tell them. I'm like, but it's a cultural thing, for
But it
sure.
feels
He's
subjective until you're in that confrontation of the other situation. And I think that also goes back into what you're saying, of in those conversations, like, wow, am I even having a conversation about something objective, or am I having a conversation about something so completely subjective?
Mhm.
It's very interesting.
It's
And
the
it
fact
leads,
that doing nothing is still actually an action, and
yes,
good or bad. Like there's times it's good to not do something, and that's a
yes,
choice, and that's important. I think that's really important, you know. Um,
yes,
Hard, but really important.
yes. And,
Like you have to
Shulamit
stand there and
also,
watch it, just like you had to stand there and watch it. I mean, you couldn't
right,
have done anything.
right.
And your mind made probably 100 different things going all at once.
100%, 100%. And afterwards, and reliving it, and what should I have done differently, and what did I read, and what could I have done differently, and did you know that she didn't really want to go for a walk an hour before, and then I insisted on taking her for a walk an hour. All the stupid things that
Mhm.
are just part of the survival, I want to make sense of something mindset. And again, it happens in a million different ways where there is no negative outcome. And this also goes back to that prayer that we're saying all the time of our Bitachon, Hashem, all the times you've saved me from outcomes that I had no idea when I was putting myself or others in danger, or when, how many of us have jaywalked? Okay. And nothing happened. And we just kept on going with our life until the one time you read a story about the person who jaywalked and got hit by a car. They're like, well, they must have done something really crazy. No, they did the same thing you've done 10 out of 9 times. And nothing happened, and you were saved. And we're not cognizant of this like huge amount of chesed that is around us in the same moment, as we're very focused on the times things don't work out, and the times that we, that there wasn't a miracle and we weren't saved from ourselves all the time. And again, it goes back to, like you're saying, Hashem being that perfect example of boundaries and compassion, of saving us, but also making us sure that we learn from our mistakes and experience the negative consequences of our choices, so that we can continue to improve ourselves in the world. Okay, we're on page 123, the partnership now. So now practical, we're in partnership with God. Just as we said regarding life and death, that a person is obligated to take steps to preserve his life and AKA the lives of others as well, avoid dangerous and deadly things, so too we say our obligation to pursue means to remain healthy, right? We have to go about getting healthy food, appropriate clothing, shelter, positive character traits, right? Are equal to food and clothing and shelter, and to distance those things that stand in the way of their obtainment. This is really reminds me also of like how, like you were saying, hiding from things or not doing something is as important as doing. What we don't like get in the way of the things we have to do is as important as putting effort towards the things that we need to do. And we have so many wastes of time calling to us that again are super normal nowadays. Like when we were all younger, all of us are older, right, at different levels, there was not the amount of distractions, right? Like when my kids complain that there's nothing to watch on Netflix, like I'm like, or a commercial, God forbid, comes on that they can't skip. Like, oh, honey, there was 3 shows I had an option of at 8 p.m. There was, and if you missed it, you missed it. And if they didn't like it, you didn't like it. And how much harder it is in that way today to go about just focusing on the things that we need to do to remain emotionally, physically, spiritually healthy. These efforts are necessary despite our strong conviction that they're actually not going to help us. May we be blessed, right? Like I can make the order for the new dress from Amazon for Shabbos, and a million things can happen and the dress might not get here. And it doesn't mean that right? Because how many times do we have that victim mindset in one area where like, I don't know what's going to happen, so I don't know that it's worth making effort, because my effort is totally based on the outcome. And I have this conversation with a lot of people I've worked with who've struggled with emotional eating and emotional weight, where the scale is, if I'm not losing weight, is it really worth just the work I'm doing every single day to take care of myself? If I'm not seeing this outcome, is it still worth it? I know it is, but I really struggle to feel it's worth it. Like, why care so much? Most people around me don't care, right? It's so much effort to care. I have to, right? Because I'm not seeing this outcome, but I still have to do it anyway. But I still have to want the outcome if it's part of something I need, right? Like if I need to work on my speech, I can't be like, I'm working really hard and I still am not making more friends. So therefore, I'm not going to work so hard on my speech and my character traits. No, I still have to do the thing. And it's hard because we all want to see results. We all want to see, it's part of human nature. We want a return on investment. But our return on investment is always coming, and we don't get to choose how it manifests, right? Hashem promises us we're always getting return on investment for serving him. And he does not promise that the clothing that you buy from Amazon will arrive on the day that you wanted it, or that this job or this client who you're subbing is going to be the one who's going to show up, or this guy that you're dating is going to be the right guy, or that this test is going to go the way you want it to, right? What do we do with that? How do we make space for that? Anybody? Thoughts?
I suppose I would say when things don't happen or whatever, this is Hashem's plan and there's something else waiting. There's something else next. There's another step. There's another thing, another whatever.
So when you have to do things and you're not assured an outcome, like you really know in the moment, like, I have to do this. I have to disconnect from the need for an outcome. How do you go about doing that?
I mean, I'm going to say it's being in the, I mean, I think life is so challenging right now. So it's very hard to be attached to the outcome. I mean, I have to not be attached to it. I mean, I'm just not attached to the outcome. I think every morning I wake up and I think, just getting out of bed sometimes right now. I just think that it's, I feel like in Judaism, we have these like things that help us like to go. So there might not be the outcome of that thing, but being able to see the other miracles around us or the other things around us. And because there are practices, even just the little morning practice or at nighttime or whatever, that those are the anchors. And so the other things, it's not more or less value, but you have these anchors. So if everything does not work out for the entire day, you at least have the anchor with Hashem, like just before you go to bed or just when you wake up. Like I'm finding myself leaning on those things more than I ever had, because things are not so predictable in certain ways. And I thought certainly by this age, pretty much everything would be pretty predictable. And since it's not, there's either another story being written, another plan being written. But I do feel like Judaism gives me anchors and touch points throughout the day that I've built in the last couple of years that I didn't even realize were touch points. Like, at certain moments of the day, just
Well, that's
like
what
you
I
say the
love
Shema
about
at
the
1 o'clock
prayer.
every day, that sort of thing. Those anchors, then it makes the other things the outcomes not so relevant.
Yes. What I love about the prayer about going to the bathroom, the prayer to go to the bathroom, I find is such an anchor for me in the day, because it's just everything over here cannot be going right. And everything is also still working. Like there's this right? This synchronicity that even though these things are not going right, these things are going right. And I think something that I've really been working on very intentionally is not moralizing everything. Like they're not related. Like they're both related in that God is running all of them. So if everything is still working here, that everything is still working over here, even though it doesn't look in anything like I think it should look right now. And it's confusing, and there's no out, like, not having to write the story right now, to being on on this page of the story, and not trying to like jump ahead. You know, I don't know, and if other people do this, but like, I love a book that I can't anticipate everything that's going to happen, like a really good Sherlock Holmes novel, like a really good detective story where it's not obvious exactly who the person is from the very, like, you don't have to moralize the whole story just based on the first page. Being so grounded in the page that it gets to unfold. Stacy, you have anything to add here?
Yeah, it's just amazing that, yeah, it's not attaching to the outcome. I love what you just said about the prayer about going to the bathroom, because that's something that we have to do all day long. And it's almost like, I don't know, it's just a built-in reminder that everything's okay, even though it doesn't seem like it is right this moment. And I just keep coming back to this novel that I'm reading, and I almost finished it. It is such a good book. Look how thick it is. It is huge.
And this was on your bucket list of life, to read this book.
Correct. There are 897 pages, and I'm like at the very end, and I didn't think that it was going to end up that the way that the story is unfolding is beyond. I couldn't have imagined it. And what I try to do is I almost see it like a game with Hashem. When things are not going right, I'm like, okay, so I don't get the instructions right now. You and I, Hashem, are in a game. You know what's gonna happen. And I'm just like, it just teaches me humility. That's just all it does. It's just constantly teaches me humility. And I had a hard time with humility when I was in my 20s, 30s, 40s. I mean, I've been working on that.
Yeah.
That's been a struggle. And so, yeah, so I don't know. I love it.
It's humility with confidence. It's the humility, but the confidence that I'll be resilient. The
Yes,
humility that I don't know how this is good, but the confidence that I'll be resilient and I'll be present when it gets good again. Right? And I
yep,
feel like we all need that so much right now. The trust in our own capability of resilience.
right, right. We are a very resilient people. Yeah, we're resilient. I just, it's really hard. Like social media is so bad, and they are like winning, that other side, with the bots and everything that they're doing on Anne Frank, posts. They're coming on laughing about it, and it's just like, really, really, that's hard. That's hard, but it does wear you down. But I am resilient. We all
I'm
are.
resilient, and like I said about the distractions today, like I've been, for better and worse, right? I've been mostly off social media. And so therefore, none of this is triggering me because I don't even know about it. On the other hand, I am not promoting my business or my coaching because I'm not on social media. And like the back and forth, like, right? Like I should be, I could be. I was just teaching English, subbing in the English today, teaching modals. Well, could I? Should I? Do I have to? Those are all totally different things. And you need context to know which is the right answer. I should be on social media. I could be on social media. I must be on social media. I shouldn't be on social media. I can't be on. This is like, real life stuff. Real life stuff. What's my job? What's my job here in this situation? Right? If these things with Aunt Frank and all this stuff are triggering me, do I need to be there? am I doing something valuable there? Am I doing something of value there? If not, can I give myself a break? Because is it distracting me from obtaining healthy food, shelter, positive character traits, doing acts of loving kindness, or is it fueling those things? Okay. So now he's going to give examples, right? A landowner must plow his land, clean it from thorns, sow it, irrigate it if water becomes available to him. So even if water's not available, he has to plow his land, clean it from thorns, and plant seeds. And then only if water becomes available should he irrigate those seeds. And at the same time, he has to rely on his creator, may be blessed, to bring forth the produce from the ground, to protect it from all the disasters, to make that produce plentiful, and to make sure that it's blessed by the creator. And what does that mean, blessed by the creator? That means that also that you should be able to eat it and enjoy it, right? Because you could have all the food and then not have the capacity to eat it and not have an appetite or not have hunger or not be able to use that food nutrients properly in your body, right? So you have to do all this work to get the food, and then it has to be blessed for you. And he must not forsake the land without working it or sowing it or relying on the degree of the creator that will spout forth vegetation without his previously having sown it. It's hard. It's a hard ask. Even though Hashem is doing most of the work, it's a hard ask. Go get a field, take this barren world that is not going to have good come without you going out there and taking out the thorns and digging out the rocks in yourself and in your family and in your home and in your community and planting positive seeds. And sometimes there's going to be water, right, available, and sometimes there isn't. And you still got to keep planting and you still got to keep sowing. And sometimes you're going to get a good result. And sometimes you're not going to enjoy the result when you get it. It's not going to be blessed. And sometimes it's going to be blessed. And you got to still keep planting and sowing and cleaning. And this applies to craftsmen and merchants and paid workers and parents and spouses. While relying on God for their sustenance is in his hands and control, they're still responsible to provide the person with his livelihood. And if he's able to fully provide him with it in any way he wishes, and a person should not think that the means in which he engages to obtain his livelihood will help or harm him at all. So teacher or baker or candlestick maker or surgeon or anesthesiologist, just because we have a skill set doesn't mean that Hashem can more or less help us to obtain all of our needs. On one hand, a person must engage in the natural means to obtain our livelihood. On the other hand, he must realize that nature alone is not the source of our income. It's the vessel for God's blessing. The true source of our livelihood is Hashem. Knowing this affects a person's attitude towards his efforts, when his efforts are successful and when they are not. And next we go into, well, how should we feel when we're being successful? When we have that moment and our hard work pays off. And we're like, oh, yes, did it, right? And that moment we're like, what? This was it? This was what I worked so hard for? How was this a waste of my time? Right? Should I have been doing all those questions that we question ourselves that aren't the right response? So if his sustenance is obtained through the means he involves himself in, it's not fitting for him to rely on that means to provide for him, to rejoice in them. Wow, being a doctor is just the best career in the whole world. You should be a doctor. You should be a doctor. Everyone should be a doctor. Pay more attention to doctor things. because it's going to weaken his trust in God. He's going to think that being a doctor means I'm going to be wealthy and successful, right? We saw that historically among the Jewish people, right? When they came to America and they made everyone become doctors and lawyers, right? Like, no, if my son is a doctor, then that means my son is a success. If my son was a barber, no matter how well his barbershop did, or he owned a chain of barbershops, that was not as successful as being a doctor at one point, right? We all kind of can imagine that reality. That's relying on the vessel versus saying, wow, Hashem gave me skills and education and opportunity. I chose to become a doctor. It's amazing. He blessed me in what I chose. Thank you, Hashem. Like, right? I feel that also about Aliyah. Like, it's been very difficult and there's so many challenges, but I do feel like I have so many blessings through Aliyah in my life, in many different areas that are only available to me because I'm here. And I can't let just Eretz Yisrael take credit for all those things, because really they're what attached me to Hashem. I chose this means to make efforts, and He blessed the results of those means. That doesn't mean there aren't challenges, and many of them, but being resilient with those challenges is working out, right? Is working out overall. Similarly, it's not fitting for him to think that his occupation helps him more than God has already decreed. So I guess, even though I want to say, because I moved to Israel, my kids turned out like well, I could say Hashem would have allowed my kids to turn out well no matter where I was, but I'm really grateful that this choice I made was the conduit God used to help my kids, turn out well. Rather, he should thank his creator who provided him with the sustenance subsequent to his toil, right? Who did not cause his toil and trouble to be for nothing, because it's really hard when our toil and trouble feel like they're for nothing. Eat the toil of your hands, and you are praiseworthy because it is good for you. One of the pious said, I am amazed at the person who gives his friend that which God has already decreed for him, for the friend, and then subsequently reminds the recipient of his kindness performed for him and asks to be thanked for it. So again, I always try to think of this when it comes to the kids. And I feel like they're always asking for more and more and more. And it's like, whatever was meant to go to them is meant to go to them. Like, I can't overly expect like their gratitude to me. It was coming to them either way. And I see that the older my kids get and the more they have their own money and their own things, that was coming to them either way. I got to be, for a certain amount of years, the sole recipient of new clothes for them. But now they have jobs and they can buy things for themselves. Like, it wasn't my money. It was God's money that was coming to them one way or another. But this is also very true in our relationship with ourselves, right? When I exercise and I eat well and my body performs all of its functions well, right? Don't look to the body and be like, well, if you really want to thank me for eating well, you better do this, this, and this. If you really want to thank me for meditating, you better be at peace the rest of the day. Don't you dare get annoyed later. I worked really hard and I meditated you, right? I took you on a walk today in nature. Don't you dare be tired at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, right? Etc. No, it makes sense in our heads. It doesn't really make sense, right? And I'm amazed at somebody who receives his sustenance through another person who was forced to give it to him and then humbles himself in front of him, over complimenting him and over praising him, right? As if you don't make him happy, people pleasing, that person has the capacity to withhold the thing that Hashem sent through that person to you, right? And so again, this healthy balance of effort and trust, gratitude and appreciation and feeling beholden, right? And I'm sure many of you guys have married kids or adult kids, right? Like, no strings, right? I'm giving you this, but no strings, or have felt strings from another family member who gave you something and you felt like you had to then please them because they gave it to you. This is all really practical. Okay, I think we have another few seconds and we'll close it up. When everything seems to fail, we're on page 126. If he does not obtain his livelihood through the means into which he put his efforts, right? We sowed, we planted, we weeded. Maybe water is available, maybe it wasn't. But it didn't sprout this year. No sprouting happened. He should consider not that God is not going to provide for him, but there's a few options. Maybe it's already in his possession. Maybe his house went up in value and he didn't need his field this year. He still had to work the field, but maybe his house went up in value. Maybe he's going to get an inheritance. Maybe he's going to have to get, somebody else is going to show up and give him charity. Maybe a million other things. Hashem has an infinite amount of possibilities to provide for us. We have to comfort ourselves. It was still fitting for us to be busy planting that field. We didn't waste our time. We didn't waste our effort. We did the best we could with the information we had and the intuition we had in the moment we had it. Did those opportunities make us a better person? Did we use those challenges to improve our character traits, our physical strength, our faith? Then we're going to be okay. And he should rely on God that he will not forsake him when he's needing him, not weaken him, not ignore when misfortune befalls him. And the Lord is good and a stronghold in the day of trouble, and he's cognizant of those who trust in him. And he ends this by also again refocusing on health. We say with health and illness, we still have to do all the things to keep ourselves healthy. And if we still get sick, then we have to just go about using the customary methods that people would use to cure themselves. But without relying that the cause of the health or illness was either a punishment or reward, or that any of these other things have the ability to aid him or harm him. And I think also thinking of everything bad that happens to you as a punishment. Yes, we all sin, where none of us are perfect, but not every negative thing that happens to us is a punishment. It's happening to us, perhaps that contraction in order for the upcoming expansion. We're judging it as bad, and therefore, if it's bad, we must deserve it, because Hashem is only good, right? But what if we deserve the good that's going to come out of this challenge, right? It's not that we deserve always, that we have to always think so negatively in this moral kind of judgment of like, I must have sinned. This must be because I did this. No, if we know that we recently did something and made a mistake, we should always go make amends and do tshuva for that thing. But we don't always have to be looking at every negative circumstance and say, I must have deserved that. Something must be wrong with me, that I must have deserved it. And it's something to just really keep in mind here, that I was making efforts. If I'm making efforts, and if I see I made a mistake, I have to rectify the mistake. But at the same time, any pain I'm having, God doesn't waste. He saves it against my loan, against other sins I might have done. But that doesn't mean that those caused this pain to happen. And then that's a great place to close up and to let anybody who wants to share kind of a final thought for the day, take with them. And when we continue, we'll continue next Sunday from page 131. Okay. Thoughts. We went through a lot today. Concepts of, just to summarize, concepts of where our partnership is, where our trust is, where reality is, where we're always dealing with these conflicting forces of awareness, of putting ourselves in danger, of what is danger anyway, of our influence over others and others' influence over us. We covered a lot of ground today. Anybody have a summary or a thought? Shulamit, welcome. We see your video. I know you were like on and off here. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm sorry, I was with friends and I had promised to be home by 4, but we didn't make it. So I was in a car some of the time, so I had to switch off and come back on again. The part that I caught was interesting because it was very relevant to me in my life right now. Is that I'm in the north of Israel. I'm not in Yerushalayim in Tel Aviv, where Shabbat is easy. And so I'm finding myself again in a place where I would do things on Shabbat that I wouldn't normally do, giving myself a little bit of grace in the situation because I'm trying my best to come to a place where I can up level, but I haven't got the solutions yet. So it's like conscious of the fact that where you live does affect you, but then on the other hand, there are other factors apart from that. There's mental health, there's happiness, there's being close to family. So it is a bit of a juggle. I would love if you had any thoughts about that, you know.
We've been saying that we have to be careful. We have to have the balance of the energies, right?
Yeah.
We need the energy of the family. We need the energy of positivity that can bring us mental health. And we need to have also accountability to our behavior. And if
Mm.
we're doing behavior that we're not happy with, we have to separate the emotions that we want from the behavior that we're choosing then in that moment, you know?
No, it's
And
less
so,
about that than about like, I don't know. It's difficult to explain, but yeah, it's just difficult to explain. It's more a question of, there are choices and there's choices within choices and you have to make the best choices available to you at the time. So that there are factors of being influenced by those. It was less about being influenced, but having access to the things that I wouldn't have. Like I wouldn't have access. I don't have access to things I would have access to in a big city, but the big city has other things that are not good or conducive to my happiness or mental health or closeness to family or survival. So it's like you're constantly having to make a choice. It's a tricky
right.
one.
Well, like he said, right? Sometimes water's available and sometimes it isn't. We still have to do our best wherever we are to sow and plant
Yeah.
and do those things. And sometimes the water's available and sometimes it isn't. Where I live, there's things that are close and things that are not, and things that are
Yeah.
easy and things that are hard. My daughter's now went to high school in a city, and she keeps complaining that she has nowhere to walk because now her school is under construction. And like, she was home during the war and she's on these beautiful nature walks.
Yeah.
School that she wants and the school that she needs is there. And so there's no beautiful nature walk exactly where she is. She can't walk out her door and do it. She'd have to take a bus, and it would take time and effort, and it's inconvenient, and it's a whole thing if she wants that kind of experience, which is easily available to here. But the high school here wasn't a good fit. Does that mean she's in the wrong place? No.
No.
It doesn't mean she's in the wrong place, but it doesn't mean that we have to always weigh our feelings about something being inconvenient and what we want to do about it, right? Do we want then to say, well, this is not available to me? Or like the man, this is available to me, but in this place, I have to walk farther to get it. And that
Mm.
just is not enjoyable today. I have to walk farther to go get them on today. Or instead of it coming, ready cooked, I have to peel the vegetables and make the soup, right? It's hard. For myself as well, it's hard when the thing that we want is requiring a lot more effort and preparation than we'd like, or then sometimes
I
let's
don't
say,
mind the effort and the preparation. That's fine. I'm okay with that. I'm on board with that. But they're just like, for example, here, there's not even a shul. I
okay,
was told there is a shul, but there's not. The shul it's all men and there's no women. So if you want to be part of shul, you have to go and sit with the men in the shul. I'm like, I'm not going to do that. So I'm missing out on experiencing Shabbat. Like for me, if I'm just home alone, okay, yeah, I can have guests, but I can't always have guests. I can't always find guests. So like if I stay at home and I daven at home and I eat dinner at home and it's just like it's a bit claustrophobic and it doesn't always feel like the best option. But it's also working on solutions. It's also making look I'm here. So I have to make the best of it and finding solutions. Like some Shabbats, I do find guests and they come, and it's really nice. And some Shabbats I get to be with my cousins. But yeah, it's like the people around it. When the people around you are not keeping Shabbos, it is very hard.
for sure,
Yeah.
no doubt about it, very hard. And every step you take and every solution you find and every time you hold space for your direction amid the hard is sowing the field.
Thank you so much for joining us for today's Healthy Trust class. Come back again to visit the Tower of Divine Protection every Sunday. To learn more about living a healthy life, body and soul, visit Lily Aronin at www.lilyaronin.com.